Hi! In this video, we are going to discuss factoring perfect square trinomials. So what are perfect square trinomials? Perfect square trinomials comes from the square of a binomial. Example, we have to square the binomial a plus b, and then the answer will be a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. And when we square the binomial a minus b, that is equal to a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So, paano yun nangyari? So, let's say for example, we have binomial a plus b. This is squared. That means we have to multiply a plus b and another a plus b. Kasi naka-square nga siya. So, dalawang a plus b. And if you can still remember that FOIL method, okay, when we multiply binomial by another binomial, we are applying that FOIL method. F for first, O for outer, I for inner terms, and L for the last terms. So, for the first terms, we have A times A, that is A squared. For the outer terms, we have to multiply A times B, so we have plus AB. For the inner terms, we have to multiply B times A, so we have plus AB. And then for the last terms, we have to multiply b times b, which will give us b squared. And when we simplify, we simply have to combine the like terms. So that is the same as a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Another example, we have a minus b. When we square that binomial a minus b, that is the same thing. So that is a minus b times another a minus b. So ulit lang natin yung process using that FOIL method. We have a times a squared. A times negative b is minus ab. Negative b times a is another minus ab. And negative b times negative b will give us positive b squared. Simplifying the terms, we have a squared. Combining like terms, we have negative 2ab. And the last term is plus b squared. So, etong dalawa dito sa dulo is what we call the perfect square trinomial na galing sa square of a binomial. Another example, let's say we have x plus 5. And that binomial is to be squared. So that means we have x plus 5 times another x plus 5. Applying that FOIL method, x times x is equal to x squared. X times 5 is 5x. Another 5 times x is also 5x. And then last terms, we have 5 times 5, which will give us 25. And when we simplify, we have x squared plus 10x plus 25. So this one here, the answer after we square a binomial, take note, we square the binomial, so the answer is now identified as a perfect square trinomial. So again, how do we identify if a trinomial is a perfect square trinomial? Una, look at the first term. The first term should be a perfect square. The third term should also be a perfect square. X squared is a perfect square. The square root is x. 25 is also a perfect square and the square root is 5. So, makukumpleto natin yung condition for a perfect square trinomial if the middle term is the same as the square root of the first term times the square root of the last term. So, that is x times 5, 5x. At kapag dinoble natin yung 5x, that is 10x. So, kapag nasatisfy yon, we can recognize the trinomial as a perfect square trinomial. We reverse the process of squaring a binomial. That is what we call now the factoring of a perfect square trinomial. So, again, we already know how to identify a perfect square trinomial. And then from that, we can now apply that rule in finding the factor of a perfect square trinomial. So again, a squared plus 2ab. So a squared plus 2ab plus b squared is equal to the square of the binomial a plus b. And a squared minus 2ab plus b squared is equal to the square of the binomial a minus b. Example. Let's try to recognize if the trinomial x squared minus 8x plus 16 is a perfect square trinomial, and if it is a perfect square trinomial, then let's try to find its factor. So, ano yung mga condition natin for a perfect square trinomial? The first term and the last term, or the third term, is a perfect square, or a perfect square. So, x squared is a perfect square with the square root of x. 16 is a perfect square with the square root of 4. For the middle term, multiply natin yung mga square root and then dodoblehin natin. So, 4 times x is 4x. Kapag dinoble, that is 8x. So, satisfied yung condition. Therefore, this one is a perfect square trinomial. And when we factor this out, so that is just the square or the square of the binomial formed by their square roots ng magkabilang dulo. So, that is x. The middle term is minus. So, that is minus. And the square root of 16 is 4. So, that is x minus 4 squared. Okay. Another example. Let's try to recognize if 4x squared plus 12x plus 9 is a perfect square trinomial. And if it is a perfect square trinomial, let's get its square of a binomial factor. So, first term, 4x squared. Is this a perfect square? Yes. And the square root is 2 and x. The last term is 9. And 9 is a perfect square with the square root of 3. 2x times 3 is 6x. And when we double it, that is 12x. So, therefore, all conditions are met. So, therefore, this one is a perfect square trinomial, which can be factored out as the square root of the first term, 2x. The middle sign is plus, and the square root of the last term is 3. So, the factor of 4x squared plus 12x plus 9 is equal to the square of the binomial 2x plus 3. Okay, kagaya sa lesson 2, we have here the table of the perfect squares from numbers 1 to 100. And also, we have here the table of perfect squares for variables. Okay, now, let's try to answer more examples. First, identify natin if it is a perfect square trinomial. And then, if it is a perfect square trinomial, we are now going to get the factor, which is a square of a binomial. Una, we have x squared plus 18x plus 81. Check natin. X squared is a perfect square. Yes, with the square root of x. 81 is also a perfect square with the square root of 9. So, 9 times x is 9x. Kapag dinoble, 18x. So, na-met natin yung condition. Therefore, number 1 is a perfect square trinomial. And, ang factor niya is x. Check for the middle sign. That is plus. The square root of 81 again is 9. So, that is x squared plus 18x plus 81 is equal to the square of the binomial x plus 9. Next, x squared minus 22x plus 121. X squared is a perfect square with the square root of x. 121 is also a perfect square wherein its square root is 11. 11 times x is 11x at kapag dinoble natin yan, that is 22x. So therefore, the second one is a perfect square trinomial. Now, the factors will be x, check for the middle sign, minus square root of 121, 11. Dalawang x minus 11 siya, so that is the square of the binomial x minus 11. Alright, let's move on to the next one. 9x squared plus 6x plus 1. The first term is 9x squared, which is a perfect square, and the square root is 3x. The last term is 1, which is also a perfect square, and the square root is 1. 1 times 3x is 3x. Kapag dinoble, that is 6x. And number 3 is also, the third example is also a perfect square trinomial. So when we factor this out, 9x squared, the square root is 3x. Check for the middle sign, and that is plus. The square root of the last term is 1. And make sure na naka-square siya. So 9x squared plus 6x plus 1 is equal to the term 3x plus 1 squared. Last, we have 25x squared minus 30x plus 9. Check the first term. 25x squared, yes, it is a perfect square with the square root of 5x. Check the last term. We have 9. 9 is a perfect square with the square root of 3. 3 times 5x is 15x. And kapag dinoble natin yon, we have 30x. So therefore, the last one is also a perfect square trinomial. And we can factor this out as square root of 25x squared again is 5x. Check for the middle sign, which is negative or minus. And square root of the last term 9 is 3. So therefore, we have 25x squared minus 30x plus 9 is equal to the square of the binomial 5x minus 3. Or 5x minus 3 squared. And that's it. Thank you.